Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Whiteboard Friday. This week we're in Whiteboard Studios West, as our normal studios are under repair. So this week what I'm talking about is a little bit of why there's this disconnect between I think big companies and pitching social media services to big companies versus their willingness to engage in social media and blogging and participation on the web. I think that a lot of the times folks do get this pushback and resistance. I know we feel it sometimes with clients that we work with. And the uncomfortability comes from a couple of factors, and so I wanted to talk about those specifically. So one of the things is there's this kind of, I don't know, general experience that I've seen that on the internet, people are generally much braver than they are in real life. So, and I don't want to say that, by braveness I don't mean that they're willing to take, courageous acts of self-sacrifice or things, but they're willing to say and do and engage in activities that maybe in the real world they would not engage in. And so a graph might look something like this. So on our x-axis we've got tact and social skills, and on our y-axis we have courage. Is that wrong? Maybe it's y and x. And you can see that the tact and social skills in person, as a general rule for most folks, is pretty high, and the courage is maybe a little bit lower. You're less likely to fight or engage in harsh discussion or topics where there's a high level of confrontation when you're right with the person. And even if you do, those discussions are generally going to be friendlier and more personable. Over the phone, it goes down a little bit, right? You might have some over the phone instances where the tact and social skills drops a little bit, the courage maybe comes out a little bit more. And in email, that can happen too. One of the things both of these mediums present is that you don't have the facial interaction that you normally get, and as we know from a lot of studies, human beings interpret a ton of information through facial tics and facial momentums and the way that a face is structured, and even at a very, very young age, children can start to recognize anger versus anger with them versus anger at an outside situation. I'll have Scott link to an article on that in the blog post. And then, of course, with tact and social skills dropping way, way down and courage rising, you find blogs and comments and social media and those areas. Again, this is one of those big reasons why a lot of mainstream companies and big brands and sites, and even small brands and sites that are more traditional, can become very concerned about this. I know I've talked to attorneys and accountants and folks in the financial sphere who are really worried about that participation and engagement because of this phenomenon of high levels of recklessness or fearlessness and low levels of tact and social skills. So as you're playing in the blogosphere, you might just be aware of this general rule. And then another thing is that the web offers kind of this equal visibility to opinions of varying validity. Now, what I've done here is I've created scatter plots, and then I've drawn some lines. So here's relative visibility on my vertical axis, and the validity of the opinion and source on my horizontal axis. So you might have some points here where you're seeing these red dots representing the offline and mainstream media. And in those, generally speaking, those who have very low validity to their opinions also have very low visibility, right? Some crackpot on public television who's ranting about Lyndon LaRouche might have considerably less play, in the mainstream media than someone who's, has a long history of very informed opinions, your Walter Cronkites. However, when you look at this scatter plot, it's pretty, right? It's pretty standard. The red line just goes up and to the right. So as visibility rises, so too generally does validity of opinion and source. You might have outliers, right? The mainstream media is certainly not perfect. So you might have someone who's very visible whose validity is really low, and you might have someone who's got great great validity, and their opinion is just not being recognized in the mainstream media. That certainly does happen. However, when you get to online and blogs and comments and social media, look at the blue dot scatter point, right? You've got them all over the field. You have people whose visibility is extremely high and their validity extremely low. You have folks who have exceptionally high validity but virtually no visibility. I know this is frustrating. We've certainly dealt with it too, and I would say that it's one of those things that makes you need to question what you read on the internet even more than what you might see in the mainstream media, or depending on your outlook, even to an equal extent. I personally like to be skeptical about lots of things. But I see this as one of the big barriers to entry for traditional firms, and barriers to entry for those of us who pitch social media services to firms. So what I would say is, when you're working with your clients, when you're working on your own projects and working on your sites, just keep these two things in mind, and maybe you'll have a bit of an easier time explaining both to your clients and yourself why certain things happen on the web that you might not expect. Next week I will be in Stockholm speaking at SMX, which I'm very, very excited about. Jillian's going to be speaking there too. And so hopefully Jane or Rebecca or Scott will fill in for the whiteboard. I will see you in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.